Trevor Young, who I've known for, I'm going to say decades. I'm allowed to say that at this point in time. Decades. It says in the book. Says in the book. So before we kick off, just a reminder for those in the room and those who are paying attention on the line, content marketing for PR is the hashtag. So we want people to ask questions here and online, and direct them to Trevor. He's got a wealth of experience, and we want to make sure he shares as much as possible tonight.
This was it.
Here's a book cover.
I'm watching it live and it's 2-second delay and it's driving me nuts, but hey, that's okay. Welcome to technology.
Trev, before I kick off with a question, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming, and love to have some questions shortly. And well, I'm looking at the screen here, and a few people are starting to tune in, which is terrific. So hopefully we can get some questions from the floor. Sometimes it's quite interesting with Facebook Live. You've got to get the chat bar happening. So if I can't get that, I'll have to get someone to help me with that.
Right.
Here we go.
We'll kick off, Trev. Ready?
Well, let's kick off.
It's the first basic question. New book. What's the book about?
What is it not about? It's a bit of a beast. Content marketing for PR. I got the domain name, so that helped with the name of the book. couple of SEO keywords there. Jim Stewart, thank you. No, the whole idea with doing it was it took a while. It probably took about 2 years to write. Yep. But you know, by the time you get to the end of it, our area is moving so quickly that you've got to go back and rewrite a good chunk of it, or you see better case studies and that sort of thing, which is something that we certainly had to do, and that elongated the that's a good word, though. Elongated the writing process. And what I liked about having to do it, there was sort of 3 reasons why I sort of went off and did it. So the book basically in its essence is looking at content marketing through a PR lens. And I was starting to get a bit antsy about the whole area of content marketing was being the conversation around it was being hijacked by, in a nice way, by the inbound marketing fraternity, and very much about sales funnels and that side of things. And yet, coming from a PR background, we knew that we've been doing content for 20, 30 years. We just never had the tools to do it properly.
So who did you write it for, Trev? I mean, it was intended for what general reader?
Well, they always say when you're writing a book, have a niche audience and a very zeroed audience. And I had a zeroed audience, but I had multiples of them. So what I've tried to do and get the balance is that if you're in PR and comms and that side of things and marketing, that you'll get something out of it. There's stuff you'll know, yep. But you'll get stuff out of it. But if you're, and it won't be just sort of dumbed down for them. But if you're someone who's an entrepreneur or a change agent or running a social enterprise, that sort of thing, anyone who needs to get their story out there, their message, in a really respectful way today, then, which is a lot of businesses, then it's written for them as well. Those people can really read it and understand it, and the early reports back is that it's done that, but from the PR people who've read it, the early reports back that there's enough meat in it. So sure. I've probably got that balance, which is good. But
and there are still a lot of PR myths. Is there sort of a bit of an aim to burst the bubble that is PR myths?
Well, I suppose when you go into a book called Content Marketing for PR, you've actually got to start with what PR is. And if you start with what PR is, you've actually got to start with what PR isn't. And that does make sense. True, it does. The problem with PR is that people think it's just publicity and media relations. And I was probably getting a little bit tired of seeing so many articles by SEO people and digital marketing and content and social media writing articles about public relations when clearly they have no understanding of the discipline. Yep. And they just put it into a box. I mean, I know PR people who wouldn't talk to the media now, ever. So and the thing was, if the opportunity there for the industry is to grasp content, because it should be probably the number one thing that they look at, and everything else revolves around that.
So what's marketing look like to you today? I mean, it's changed a lot, I'm guessing, over the time you've been.
Well, all I can see is that PR now, used to have nicely defined areas. They might have overlapped a tiny bit, but really, advertising did what advertising did, media companies did what they did, digital were over there in the back room. Direct marketing, they used to be called the stamp lickers, and they're now the powerhouses, because they're now the data junkies who are doing some really great stuff. and PR was over here, but now you've got social and content marketing, and I've talked to heads of marketing and heads of PR and comms in pretty big brands, and one was telling me quite recently that she's getting content ideas from their PR agency, their SEO agency, their digital agency, their 2 ad agencies. And there was someone else trying to, there was a content agency trying to push their way in. 6 to 7 agencies were trying to push content. And I said, you've just got to stop, own it, do the strategy, and sure, maybe get some ideas from them down the track. But if they're not following your strategy and they're just giving you ideas for the sake of it, piff them.
How do you distinguish social and content marketing then now?
Well, whenever you talk about content, you're going to talk about social. Whenever you talk about social, you have to talk about content, because content makes up such a large part of social. So this book by de facto is a fair bit of social media as well, because you can't separate them. You can't separate them. And I look at it owned, earned and social. Owned are your own channels that you own and control, your media, your YouTube channel, your email list, going old school. Email list is your own media channel. Your blog, your podcast, that sort of stuff. You own those and control them. Social media, obviously you control the content you put on it, but you don't control the channels. We know that Facebook could change the rules very quickly, and they do, and that could have a large effect of your business. I mean, there's a lot of brands who built big followings on Facebook, only then to be told, we're not going to serve your content to them anymore. So
you talk a lot, I heard you speak a lot in the book. You mentioned vital pillars. What's the
vital
concept
pillars.
of vital pillars?
So just in a way of just trying to differentiate what content marketing for PR is, and I kept coming back to this, and luckily it spells vital. It really took me a little while to come up with that acronym, I must say. But it's vital stands for visibility. So you've got to be visible. If you're not visible in your marketplace, you're dead.
Yep.
I mean, that's the hardest thing. That's probably the challenge of cutting through the noise. So strategic visibility, strategic omnipresence. Do you like that one?
You're looking at me really intensely.
Yeah, mate, sorry. I is for influence. If you can't influence people, an outcome, get people to sign up, buy your stuff, attend your events, all that sort of stuff, then what are you trying to do? Trust is the social currency of today. If you have, the Edelman Trust Barometer tells us year upon year that, companies aren't trusted, non-profits aren't trusted, governments aren't trusted, the media isn't trusted. So who do we trust? So the opportunity then is for businesses to become trusted, but that means they have to go through a whole lot of stuff to do that over a period of time. A is for advocacy. If you're not building a growing pool of fans, followers, advocates, supporters, enthusiasts of your brand, your business, your purpose, what it is you do and stand for, then you're going to have to pay to reach people. So I think that's the really unsung part of our industry is doing that, is trying to build that audience of people who are connected to you and who like you and trust you. And I don't see enough brands. I was just saying earlier that a lot of brands trying to get new all the time, more people, when they're not even talking and connecting with the people who like them already. And L, I do remember what L is. L is leadership.
Love.
Leadership. Love's not bad. I might toss that one in. Maybe it's vital with double L, but it's leadership. And that's taking a leadership positioning in your industry, and that might be a knowledge leadership positioning, a community leadership, a thought leadership positioning, because that's the only thing that can really now start differentiating you from your competitors, because if everyone's doing the same stuff, got access to the same growth hacks, then how do you differentiate yourself?
So every time you speak, you've got many examples to pull from. There's probably lots of them in this room now. What are the favourite examples, Trev? What are the best ones? What are the worst ones?
Examples. So we do cover a number of. The book's jam-packed with small examples all the way through to bring colour. I like bringing these theories to life and showing that companies, organisations, brands, individuals, non-profits, whatever, all across the board, what they're doing and who's doing it well. But there are a number that do it well across the board, and I have had a focus on them. I've called focus on rather than case studies, but they've got their own chapter. One is Firebrand Talent, which is Sydney-based, but we have the Melbourne General Manager here somewhere. There we go, Alex Kenning. Firebrand Talent have been doing it really well for a very long time. Tough industry in terms of recruitment. Social media well, content terrific, do events, got advocates, do influencer relations really well. everything really well. If people want to go and check out the Firebrand Talent blog, it's brilliant, and they've got other people to write for them, which is very smart.
Yep.
Another one is a guy called Darren Woolley, who's grown a global management consulting or marketing management consulting firm from Australia. He's been blogging for 10, 12, 13 years, and he's still doing it, and he's still going hard, and he's got a provocative point of view on a lot of things around advertising, yep. and that leads on to all sorts of things. And probably my favourite's the Goulet Pen Company. So you can learn a lot from a company that sells fountain pens online. I kind of like the irony of that. And they are just killing it. And people pay a lot of money for premium, and they could go to Amazon and buy pens a lot cheaper. But they've built their tribe, their community, their audience, and their signature content move, and they do everything well. I can't fault them on anything. And their content signature move is an hour-long Q&A show about fountain pens, paper, ink, wax seals on YouTube every week. I'm not kidding, every week. Check them out. I mean, it's just, people are watching it like it is TV, like it's programmatic TV for them. Every week they put it out. They've up to about 260 episodes.
Wow.
But where that works is they've built their audience so much and they're so engaged with them that they're all asking questions, and these guys answer the questions. So they're three that I really rate and have for a long time.
So second book, I mentioned it was the second one. Most people don't write one, you've written two, and
yep.
I know you're already talking about maybe writing a third.
Mm-hmm.
This one's self-published.
Yep.
First one was published through
Wiley, Australia. Yep.
Wiley, Australia. So why the change? What's the motivation?
I think that there's a need to understand this. I mean, I've got to understand it to be able to talk to people about it. It's a pretty steep learning curve, but I've always been a bit more on the DIY side of things, and it still blows me away to just, I can sit at home and I can hit a couple of buttons, and all of it's scary actually. Yep. Globally, you're on Amazon globally, you're on. We're on booktopia.com.au now. We're on Barnes & Noble. We're, about to go, and Google's a little bit harder to get into. We'll be hopefully on Google soon. There's aggregators. There's print on demand. Go back a few years, you had to buy. If you went to a printer, you'd have to buy 1,000 books minimum, and have them sitting in your garage. Now you buy them you don't even buy them really. You might buy 10 or 20 at a time. But people can buy direct, and they're the tools that the big publishers are using too. So. All of that is at our disposal. Even doing the interior design of a book is through software. So it's just amazing. And until that's the big learning curve. Is the hardest part's not writing; it's just learning all about it. But once you get that and you understand it, you've got the software and the players that are doing it, then you can replicate. So I just think that that's good. And I will. So the first book was a book called Micro Domination, which was going back a few years. So this is like the second album with a rock band.
Still available, the first book, Trev?
Still available. And it was just a little bit of time between drinks. There's always a thing about, you can go off, particularly non-fiction, you can go and write that book to build your personal brand, and I get it because I talk about it all the time. But this one, I'm probably a bit more of a purist. I think it's better to, a lot of authors, non-fiction particularly, will tell you that the book just came out of them. There was a need, whatever it was. They had no control over it. And this was just a book that kind of had to write itself, and you have to get those ideas out there. And people have different reasons for doing it, but part of that is to get that book out of there. There is a third book.
Right.
And there's a friend of mine over there who I wrote it with, going back a few decades. We wrote a book called, what was it called? Television and You. What was it called?
Television in Action.
I can't even remember it. Television in Action. It was a book written for the school system, and we did it all about television, and we took people, we wrote about TV, and we went to see Prisoner behind the scenes and the news and everything. It was great. But you can't get it now. I've got 2 copies. They're rare as hen's teeth. I'll sell them for I'll sell them for $3,000 each.
And so Prisoner, while it was filming.
Yes.
That would have been
I was 3.
You might survive. Yeah.
Greg was much older. He pushed me in a pram to it.
And if you take out the Magic 8 Ball, Trev, is there anything that you've seen that you think will change more than anything else in the years to come? What do you see?
No,
what trends do you see?
the problem with a lot of brands is that everyone's trying to find the growth hack, and this bit of technology is not going to save you. It's what there's a big move now towards, are you going to be transparent, open? We actually expect that now. Mm-hmm. Provenance, where are your products from? Leaders have to be out there on social media, and there's research that says that people will buy products and services from brands where the CEO is and the leadership is out on social media. When you see the brands that do everything well and are committed to this connected brand culture where they're open, they're creating content, they're on social, they're doing everything well. When you see it, they are so poles apart from any other brand that's spending heaps just to try and reach people. It's going to be harder to reach people. Like, who here's got ad blockers? Who fast forwards through the ads? I mean, no one does it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, and that's the thing about the book. It's not that you shouldn't do inbound marketing. It's not that you just need your own philosophy of what you do. If you try and follow everyone, you're going to be in a world of pain because it's changing too quickly. So part of the book is quite philosophical, is you've got to sit back and work out what's right for you and your brand and go for it. Because what's right for this guy is not necessarily right for you. And that's probably the biggest learning, I think.
You teach a lot of people, you've taught a lot of people, there are lots of lessons over the last decade or two. Is there different advice you give people as 20-year-olds now coming into the industry versus those that have been in the industry for a long time?
I guess the ones that are coming into the industry now, they're a bit lucky is that they haven't got old habits to grab onto or to try and get rid of. It's hard getting rid of old habits. If you've been in marketing, you've been doing the same thing for God knows how long, yeah. And it's all about you and your product, and you're just going to bang on about it. Good luck with that. That's hard. That's hard yakka now, but it's hard to let go. Whereas if you're coming through now, you're going to be a digital native anyway, and you haven't got those old habits. So I think that's the big thing. I think anyone who's in a leadership comms role, marketing, if they're not doing stuff in this book, they're not at the top of the tree yet.
Yeah, the agency model is dead. It's your observation. I know is it changing fundamentally? Or
no, there's always going to be a need for agencies. I mean, brands need skill sets. The challenge for agencies, whether it's PR, advertising, whatever it is to differentiate themselves, stand for something rather than do everything, and have enough skill sets. So I've got a virtual agency set up. There's probably 10, 11, 12 of us, different skill sets. You just can't, if you were running a PR firm, you'd need 10 people to do the whole thing properly, unless you say we're just going to do this, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I reckon if you try and do everything, you're in a world of pain. If you try and yes, upskill your people, but if you upskill them across too many things, you're in a world of pain. If you're in a niche area of marketing, I think that's a smart place to be. But then again, if it's a niche like just one platform and that platform changes, then you've got to stay up to date with them. So it's, on one hand, it's never been more challenging. On the other hand, it's never been more opportunities.
Should we shift focus and ask questions of the audience, Trevor?
We can ask online questions for the audience, and I'll just give a shout out to a few people here because I've just had to re-click. Facebook's not the most I don't know about you, but it's not the most user-friendly.
As a streaming platform, it's awful.
Yeah, I know. It's just really hard sometimes. You could just chuck a lazy billion into the user experience.
I, for one, Trevor, would like to say to Mark Zuckerberg, our Facebook overlord, I think the platform is almost perfect in all ways, Trevor.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a shout out to Mark Masters all the way from Bournemouth. Mark's in the book. I've done a chapter on Mark Masters. He's got a great conference called You Are the Media. He started from interviewing people around the world on content marketing. He built it up to, in 2013, hopefully I got this right, Mark, 2013 he started a weekly email newsletter, which he continues to this day. He does it, apart from Christmas, he doesn't miss. And it's meaty and it's chunky and it's got points of view. And what he's done is build a really wonderful community in Bournemouth that's stretching over to Melbourne. So I do #MelBournemouth. And they're just doing some tremendous things. And so now he does lunch clubs. He's got a podcast, all under the You Are the Media, and he's got a great conference once a year. So I was over there in January with my daughter Molly, and lovely place in Bournemouth and just some terrific people. And this is the power of community, is that I feel very, very close to them there, even though we're across the other side of the world.
Trevor is huge in Bournemouth, just in case you're wondering.
We've got a thumbs up. It's a visual thing, you've got to see it. John Manning, thank you very much, mate. Congrats. More interesting than the project.
Number 13. All right. Okay. So questions from the audience.
Oh, geez.
Oh, geez. Settle down.
Hang on. Here's our technology.
Don't rush the stage.
I want to see what this looks like. No, they're not. We were going to do Dorothy Dix's. Look at that. We've got great technology now seeing the crowd. Again, if you're on the run, hide. You can ask the valet a few questions.
I'm interested in the forums that we have to use social media and so on, Facebook, to build trust in forums and companies which are untrustworthy. And so I'm just worried about the quandary there, where it's sometimes hard to trust the forums you want to build your own trust in your own brand, and how do we balance that?
100%. Massive trend, Sama, and you know this, the massive trend at the moment is going to private networks. Nike's done it well, Peloton's another one, I believe. They're still using the platform, they're still using Facebook a lot, but people want to be part of something. They want to be connected with other people with like minds around shared interests. And that's humanity. That's not going to change. And so that's really, really happening, that's going to really keep going in that regard. So that shift is very much on, and those that are running them, who are doing it well, are finding a massive updraft. So people have got a bit more of a safe space to talk. They might not talk in the open wilds of Facebook, but they'll go to a private group. There's a company called Mighty Networks, who's absolutely killing it at the moment, and they are everything you want in a community, an online community. And taxi. But it's not on Facebook, it's not on anything. You can get your own app, they white label the whole lot. And I've heard them, the founder of that speak a number of times, Ginny Bianchi, I think her name is. Mighty Networks. They are certainly one to watch, and they're on spec and they came from a company called Ning. She ran a company called Ning many years ago. So
Ning.
These guys know what we're talking about. Yeah. Mighty Networks is probably an advanced of Ning, and that means you can create. I've lost the crowd. You can create your own network for your own brand, and maybe yes, I think the email thing is absolutely works a treat. And if people actually opt in to give you an email address to hear from you, that's got to be respected. And as we know, there are a lot of marketers who don't respect that and just piff crap at you. But if you can, if you've built a big enough tribe and you want to maybe take them off Facebook and put them into I was going to say Ning, into a Mighty Network, I reckon we'll start seeing a lot more of that. So everything's splintering down. That's a big trend. People are sick of a bit of the open wild. It doesn't mean they're not there, but it just means they're a bit more reticent to go on and talk about it.
Mr. Jim Stewart before Heath Evans.
Taking order.
Heath just got here.
I know he's late.
Why so late?
Oh, you want me first? Okay. You touched on those.
Microphone, wait for the microphone.
Crisscross. Trevor, I'm really interested. Obviously, one thing that's changed over time is these sort of semi-private networks, whether they be WhatsApp, whether they be Slack. Where do you see the opportunity for, I guess, brands to really play space in harnessing those networks and taking them away from, I guess, traditional social networks, but also playing in that middle ground, which is more
dark social. They call it dark social media because it's social, but you can't see it, and they can't measure it or monitor it, which freaks marketers out. I mean, I think that there's a fair bit of research that I've read that people are very happy to if they opt in and they want to talk to brands, they talk to brands and they opt in to do a direct message. Again, it's that let's take it off the main channels, which I think brands are probably really happy about. And so I think that's going to be huge. We're only just seeing the tip of the iceberg on that. If you ever want to see anyone do messaging really well or chatbot, the ABC. Just subscribe to the ABC on Messenger to get a really good feel for what a brand can do on Messenger, albeit it's a media brand. But I think that is very much the future. Whether it's going to be mainly Facebook or whatever. I mean, it's been on Twitter, on the back channel of Twitter for quite some time, but you know, increasingly it's WhatsApp, and of course there are other channels coming out of, and Messenger. And guess who owns WhatsApp and Messenger? Facebook. So there's a bit of that, but I agree. I think it's great, and but that also brings us to it's how respectfully you use them. And that's the same of any channel. Just because there's a channel there and it's new and it reaches people doesn't mean you should blast people. And I think, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing these chatbots at the moment, and some of them are quite handy when you need something and you pip it into the chat box and actually a real person talks to you, which is really good. What I don't like is it just keeps flashing at you. How did you get here today? And I put that up on Twitter once, and someone said, just tell me you flew in on a flying carpet. So I went back on and said I flew in on a flying carpet. Do
you think people are getting better, given the volume of content, Trevor? Like an enormous volume. I think we've had conversations over quite a few years that it's incredible how much is produced. The quality doesn't seem to be getting better, does it?
No, the quality is, because everyone's doing it, and a lot of people are saying, okay, let's outsource. I need to do 20 blog posts a month and I'm going to outsource it for $100 a post, and I don't care what it's about. Like, you're going to see crap like that because brands are always going to try and shortcut. So they're just making noise and clogging the system. The ones that are doing it well are doing it better and better. So you have to be pretty good now to just even cut through, and you have to really understand your audience. Now, traditionally with content marketing, it was, okay, who's your audience? Makes sense. Identify your audience, what's of interest and relevance to them, what questions are they asking, their pain points, all of that, which is fine. And that's content marketing more from an inbound marketing side. And no one ever went wrong being useful and helpful to for customers. And so I like that as a really starting point. Who are your customers? But then it's how you answer those questions. Is it one line? Is it a blog post which has got no passion behind it and not much depth? Or is it you're doing videos and showing the people? So even that FAQ can be done 100 times better by brands, 100 times better. And then I talk a lot about leadership content, and this is where PR, content marketing for PR starts to change, is that leadership, I use the example of Seth Godin, and Seth Godin's one of the top bloggers in the world, and he's not out there answering people's questions per se. He's actually prodding them and poking them and changing the way they think about ideas and that sort of thing. And so that throws that inbound marketing thing on its ear a little bit, because sometimes people don't know what they don't know, and sometimes you might have to be provocative about an idea. There's a guy called Mark Schaefer I talk about in the book, terrific blogger in America. He wrote an article called Content Shock. I can't give you the stats because they're amazing on how viral that went, but he was talking about we're just basically giving all the science behind we're creating too much content. And he's not helping anyone with that, he's actually scaring people. And so that to me is true thought leadership. Yep. And then the final part is sort of corporate content, taking people behind the scenes of your business. A lot of big companies, they all put out press releases, no one's interested, they've gone through the legal department, they don't make sense. Put them out, you're never going to win that battle. But then put out a video, if you've got a new product, sure, put your press release out, which no one cares about, but then put out a video about the product designer and interview them and how they came up with the idea and how they put it together. That's of interest. If you won an award, don't just, how many particularly agencies do this? Every agency of every persuasion. The only time the CEO is on LinkedIn is when they've won a friggin' award, which no one cares about. Okay, put that out, but then put out something, 5 lessons we learned from winning this award and what we had to do to get there. So there is the story behind the story behind the story.
Speaking of award-winning.
Award-winning.
Jim Stewart.
Controversial, provocative. Jim's quoted in the book, and I won't get the quote exactly right, but it was something to do with, when I hear that, I want to burn the cities to the ground.
Sorry.
It's terrific.
It's from Blues Traveller.
You know what you're talking about there.
It's a bet. Content marketing, you were talking about visibility. Where do you see paid visibility coming into play for content? Because this bloke sitting next to me, he put me onto advertising my own videos, which is just ridiculous because I advertise all my clients' videos but not my own. And he's been buying ads for his videos, and I've been buying my ads for my videos. And to me, it seems like Channel 31 when you used to go and spend your $800 to put up a pilot episode. Channel 31, isn't it the same thing?
No.
No,
Channel 31 only gets you a certain small audience.
Well, okay. But I mean, paying to get your content out there.
We've lost the book. That's a sign. I agree with paid. I agree with your best content, not everything.
No.
Your best content, but it doesn't have to be a lot of money anymore. But I think you do have to invest. If you've spent good money to create, you've put your heart and soul. It's good content. You want people to be able to find it, and depending on where you're putting your dollars and how you're doing it. There's a guy, his name escapes me, Miles Harris will know, but he talks about paid media, paid social at $1 a day. He's got a course of it. Dennis, you.
Oh, yeah.
And he's done a whole course around $1 a day for paying and building it up and just making it part of your overall thing. That's your organic stuff. This is not paid for conversion, is it? This is just to visibility, and then ultimately you want to draw them in and maybe get email and whatever, or sign up or whatever. But I think you have to do it now. You have to do it. Do you do it with everything? Probably not. But and if you've got some more premium signature content that's like an ebook or a tutorial or a webinar, you'll probably put more bucks behind that as well, because that's more premium, and that's a bit more with a conversion in mind. But we're working with some clients where they're going into markets where people don't know them, and so for 2 to 3 months we've got organic content, not asking for anything.
I've seen some really good long form video ads on YouTube, which is why I asked the question. You never see them on television.
I do flick through.
This one brand.
I flick through 15 seconds if I can.
I'll send you the video. This brand has got 90 million followers.
No, they're doing something right. And just when you think everything's done and there's, this is the rules and the laws of this, someone goes and changes it. With podcasting, it used to be 20 minutes, no more. Do it once a week, no more. And then John Lee Dumas came out with a daily podcast, because no one was doing it. And then some of the biggest podcasters in the world go for 1.5, 2 hours. So if we followed everyone saying, this is the hack, this is what works, this is the time of day we're going to, post and all that, it all changes. You become slave to it. And I think that's the philosophical thing is run your own race. Sure, look at other people, be inspired, all of that, and try what works for you and your brand. If you're, what's your philosophy? If you're all about trust, building trust and transparency, double down on anything that takes people behind the scenes. If you're all about reputation, don't do pissy little listicles and clickbait headlines. You just don't do these things that are counter to what you're trying to achieve. And everyone's different. That's the thing. The problem is when you read about content is everything. This is the way it's done. It's not the way it's done. You do it the way you want to do it.
Just what you were talking about then was leading to the question which I was going to ask you from when you first started researching. From when you first started researching the book to now that you've written it, and what you were just talking about, how quickly things have changed. What's the starkest thing that you've seen in your time from the beginning of this book to publication that has changed?
It's a very good question.
Or perhaps is no longer relevant.
Or
has made a huge
it's not as if we're getting a lot more sort of. There's not too many more new platforms coming out. They've slowed down. I think the changes are the private networks has been sort of a bit more of a recent thing.
We've talked about video as well too.
Video and live has certainly come a long way. Statistics of what people find and what was working 2 years ago might not be working as well today. So, you've got to take that into consideration. So all of those things, plus probably a lot of it was people who were doing stuff. So people who were doing stuff well 2 years ago might not be doing it well now, and I've seen heard a better podcast or seen a better blog, or someone else is doing social better. So there was a lot of that. I had to keep updating the examples in the book. So all of those things. But I do reference throughout the book a guy called David Miman Scott who's got a terrific book called The New Rules of Marketing and PR. And he wrote that first in 2007. He's got about number 7 or 8, Jim, coming out this year or next year. He works with him. But when you look at what he's done, and I've spoken to him in the past, that's probably the biggest book in our area. And when he started, it was MySpace. And what was the Virtual Worlds one? Second Life. Second Life. Linden Labs. Second Life was terrific. It was when you can go onto an island as a 3D character, and I reckon it's probably better today than you could do it better today than ever before. Yeah, it's coming. Because in those days, Wi-Fi, well, internet was in 2007 wasn't great, and he had. So when you look at his evolution, he's that tool's out. We've now got Snapchat. This is happening. You know, Instagram's exploded. So I haven't had that side of things in the last couple of years. That side of things has steadied down. It's a bit more how people are using everything.
Yvonne sent me a text message and email, and she called me and said, "Why wasn't she in the book, Trev?"
That's why I bought it on Kindle so I could search for my name. But then I searched for Bellis and he wasn't there either. Yeah. And then I gave up. I stopped reading after that.
Well, I needed a good SEO quote, and you didn't give me one, so I had to go to Jim and burning down the cities.
Zingers.
I thought you might say because I haven't done anything you told me to do yet.
That's true.
I'm not a good
Now apparently there's 15 comments, and I can only see 5.
Is it the projector that turned off or the computer?
No, the computer's on. It's the projector didn't turn it. But so anyone who's asking questions on Facebook.
Trevor, we've got one back here. Tristan White, speaking of people that were included in the book, I think that I may have got to mention for the people in the front.
Look at you!
I don't really have a question, I just wanted the video. I actually do have a question, and that is, firstly, Trev, congratulations on the book. I'm really excited about it. But you've mentioned podcasts a couple of times, and I'm interested in audio. I'm a podcaster. I only started about a year or so ago. I'm a little bit late to the party, but I'm interested, where are we up to with audio? What's the current state of podcast, and where do you see the future of audio?
Yeah, I don't think you're late to the party. Even now, it's still reasonably early days. I think just the way we look at it now, you know, that it's not just formatted. I mean, obviously, audio and voiced in totality with, you know, Hey Google and Alexa and that sort of thing is changing the ball game. You know, to be able to ask, you know, say Hey Google and then ask for this podcast, then that is a good thing as well. It's only going to get bigger. I mean, the stats behind it are, and it's pretty steady. It's never been hockey stick growth, which I like. It's been really steady growth. And when people discover podcasts, they listen to a lot of them, and they listen to, on average, like 90% of them. So they're engaged. It's probably the only, well, it is the only medium where you really can engage people for a period of time. And they can multitask, which works well for today where people are busy. So I think podcasts got a long way to go. We see that obviously the narrative style, which is like Serial and what the ABC are doing and NPR in the States, that's high-end production. A few of the big brands are doing it, but I'd hate for that to put off the smaller DIYers, because that's where the magic is a lot of the time. The passionate individual who wants to do it and have a voice and interview people or do whatever they do, there's still a real big place for them. What we don't need now necessarily is, I know podcasts are going to a monthly, and making it a lot longer. We've got the podcasters, as I said earlier, doing 1.5, 2 hours. We've got the podcasters do a day. We've got podcasts that are 5 minutes long. We've got podcasts now who do, you know, short run 20 to 25 episodes that ladder up to a release of a book or a product. And so I think we can be really, and now a lot of them are doing it in seasons, because it's pretty brutal to be doing it every week, as you well know. And so to do it in seasons, take a break of a month and then come back again. And so I think that side of things, I mean, I'm toying with the idea of maybe doing an hour show, making it video, but making sure that that can also be done on audio as well. So I just think that there's a lot more. We're now breaking away from this is what a podcast is to how can we use audio? Can we use audio for white paper? Everyone writes white papers. No one records them. I found one.
Sorry, was that everyone writes that?
Everyone writes a white paper. I've seen one, and it's Adobe. I searched high and low to try and find it. I had to put it in the book. Well, this is a greenfields opportunity because no one's doing it. So if you're going to do a white paper, why not do a really good production, record it? Of course, we've got audio books as well, you know, which is part of podcasting. You know, why don't you do podcasts, have it really well organised and turn that into an audio book? I mean, it's the creativity we've got with everything now is there. And then you can turn that podcast into, you know, 200 slides. It can turn, I'm reading a book at the moment and they've turned their podcast into a book. So I think it's great that it's not one thing or the other anymore. But I think I'm a podcast junkie. I think podcasts we haven't even scratched the surface with audio on demand.
Right. We're going to wrap up soon. So first we're going to take a message from our sponsor, Trevor Young. Where do you buy the book? How can you buy the book?
Where is the book?
Where's the book?
Oh, bloody computer.
It's a great birthday / Christmas / I'm sorry I didn't come home early enough present, Trevor.
What am I doing?
So where can they buy the book?
So we can see the screen.
No, it's fine.
Where can they buy the book, Trevor?
I think there was a book somewhere.
What's your preferred channel other than
I know.
Cash Money?
Okay, so the great thing with this is you can kind of buy it anywhere now. I mean, I've got 8 copies, which I'm probably not even going to sell tonight. That's all I've got. Yeah, I know. It's called scarcity model. Scarcity as I didn't order enough. No, the key is some people are on Amazon, some people love Kindle, but surprise, surprise, Amazon's not the only player in the world. Apple Book is probably potentially even bigger in Australia. Barnes & Noble's big, so we're on all of those. And there's about another 10 dozen of ones
Too
you've
much
never...
choice, Trev. Just tell them go there and buy the book.
I'm just saying, it's available for wherever you buy your books. It should be available.
Reputable bookseller.
And disreputable.
Okay, now I will say it's not on shelf at airports or at Dymocks, but if you go to Dymocks, you should be able to order it. But go to Booktopia. It's all print on demand. You get it.
So you should go to amazon.com.au, buy the book, leave a great review.
Leave a great review, share, buy another one.
That's all.
That's it. That's your life. 12 books every month.
You should run an agency.
The audio version is not ready yet. Give me a couple of months for the audio version, but a lot of people are asking for audio, which I will do.
Yes.
I'm going to do audio. And I might do a Gary Vaynerchuk and go off script. You heard him? He goes off script. He goes off the book and starts riffing on all these topics.
That's it. He wants his chance to be in the voice.
She'll read the book.
Do you need a female voice?
I think we're just about done, Trevor.
I think we are done.
Is
Thank you for those who have... Hang on. I just want to address the people who have tuned in. Thank you very much. For some reason, I can't see all the comments. But I just want to make sure, congrats, all of that good stuff, thumbs up.
Final message, thanking people, anyone in particular in this room?
I'll just say more interesting than the project. Did I say that before?
You said that before.
Still more.
Oh, we're doing repeats already.
Still more interesting than... Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, linesmen. Thank you, boys and girls. And
we're done?
I think we're done.
Take us off the air. Thanks, Jeff.